Renewing Your Intervenor Credential with Linda Elsap. The logo for NIAA, the National Intervenor and Advocate Association, is shown.
Okay, so this is our credential renewal. So this is for anyone who has their credential, will be needing to renew it, or anyone who's been with the credential for over 5 years and wants to renew it. And so this gives you kind of a heads up on what to do and how to do that. So just to give you a little bit of background, in 2013, a group of interveners held a special meeting to establish the National Intervenor Association, and that time it was called NIAA. And this organization included interveners from around the country, and then an intervenor leadership team who was kind of to help decide, make decisions, and lead us forward, and then to establish a national network of interveners. In 2020, the National Intervenor Association became the National Intervenor and Advocate Association, NIAA with another A. And that expanded it to include interveners, parents, professionals, and others. So we felt like we really needed to have the support of others in the field to expand the work that we could do with, again, the core group being the interveners. So this larger group continues their efforts to have interveners recognized as related service providers under IDEA. So that's one of the main goals. There are other goals there that you can see on our website, but one of our main goals has been to elevate the practice, the work that you do, and to recognize you just as interpreters are recognized under IDEA. So just quickly, the National Intervenor and Advocate Association is an organization, as I said, for interveners, educators, and parents to advance the profession. And we all believe this was the group of interveners that put this belief and mission together. We believe that children with deafblindness have the right to access information about people and things in the environment that are necessary for learning, interaction, and overall development. We believe that this access can be provided by the services of an intervener who works one-to-one with a child who's deafblind and who's been trained through an intervener training program at a university or college. So NIAA has been very supportive of the higher education path in terms of the training of interveners. The mission of NIAA is to promote quality intervener services for all children and individuals who are deafblind, to also promote the recognition of interveners. As some of you know who've been with us quite a while, this recognition has been hard to come by and kind of slow, but it's getting that we get more and more momentum, and now we're recognized more on a national level. But this has been an important piece to have the recognition of interveners. Also, to promote the acceptance of the term intervener as a unique profession requiring specialized training in deafblindness. So this is to show, because deafblindness is a unique disability, the support people who work with these individuals are unique, very unique, and their skill set is very unique. So we want to have positive awareness of the great impact that you all have on children's learning, communication, and overall development. You guys see that every day, and I'm lucky enough to see it when I work with you individually. But we need to, part of our work is to make others aware of this and to be more, to spread that information and have people understand what your role is. We also wanted to provide interveners with support for networking with others in the field. Interveners, we hear all the time, feel very isolated. There are some who are lucky enough to have 2 or 3 maybe in a school or in a location, but many interveners, as you know, work kind of in an isolated situation where they don't have a lot of other people to interact with. So again, this is part of what the mission of NIAA is. Also to promote systems change, whatever's needed to have interveners recognized as related service providers under IDEA. And then this looks like it's a repeat, so we'll just go to the next slide. So one of the important things that has occurred as part of our efforts has been the Alice Cogswell and Ann Sullivan Macy Act. And I think most of you have heard about that, but if you haven't, this might be helpful to know. One of the things that's been very obvious as we've been working in the field is that we have to change the system, and not just at a state level, at a district level, which we work to do that also, but on a federal level. We have to have recognition, like interpreters. Everyone knows what an interpreter is. The term interpreter is written in IDEA. People understand that. Nobody really argues about what that is, but we haven't been as fortunate in deaf blindness to have that, partly because our children are very low incidence and there's not lots and lots of knowledge out there about deaf blindness and what that means. So in about 2014, we were involved in writing Title III, which is called Improving the Effectiveness of Special Education and Related Services for Children and Youth Who Are Deafblind. Now, there's 3 titles to this Cogswell-Macy Act. The first title has to do with deafness, so it's all about deaf children and advocating for deaf children. The second title is about blindness and advocating for blind children. And then Title III is the piece that has to do with deafblind children. And if any of you are interested, you can go and find that. I believe the link to that is on the website. So that's been an important piece of legislation. If you are interested, the Cogswell-Macy has just been reintroduced this last month, and it has a bill each 2 years that it's introduced. So these are the bills. In the Senate, it's bill number 2945, and in the House, it's the bill number 5748. So there may be opportunities for you as interveners to be involved in advocating for this bill, and I wanted you to know about it and how important it is as far as nationally getting recognition for interveners. It pretty much, all 3 sections of Cogswell-Macy talk about the importance of deafblind and deafblind children being counted appropriately, that they should be evaluated appropriately, and there should be plans to meet their needs. So it also means that there need to be qualified personnel to serve these children and support them in all of their needs. Also, part of Cogswell-Macy is to have students who are deafblind have access to trained and qualified interveners. It's written right in there. That language is written in that document, the term intervener, that they'll have access to trained and qualified interveners. It's also related, it also talks about teachers of the deafblind. But one of the things that's very important is that it's in there and interveners are in there notated as a related service. So what's proposed as you look at this under IDEA in this section of the law, there's intervener services which do not, that intervener services in black that you can see, that doesn't appear right now. That's not there. You'll see interpreting services, but Cogswell-Macy asks for intervener services to be added in. And then a definition, as you can see, meaning that it's a qualified intervener that enables the child to receive FAPE. So this is language you don't have to memorize or remember. If you have questions, let us know. But we want you to understand that there's a lot of effort and support in the wording to elevate what you're doing. We know that there needs to be elevation done of the practice of interveners. And so in Cogswell-Macy, in what's called Section 321, They talk about personnel being qualified teachers and personnel being qualified interveners of the deafblind. So that wording is there, and our hope is, again, that this is helping to increase awareness. IDEA is not going to come for reauthorization anytime soon, but this is still an effort that brings a lot of attention to the needs of children who are deafblind and deafblind. And we have a good, strong connection now to the Congress, to especially to those sponsors of this bill. So one of the things that's been really, really important has been for us to show that interveners are above the level of paraprofessionals. Unfortunately, as interveners have come into the field, it used to be that an aide was assigned to children who are deafblind, and that aide was considered a paraprofessional. And so in many instances, that's how interveners are viewed, as paraprofessionals. And there have been a lot of issues around pay, around retention, around respect. There have been a lot of things that have occurred as part of this view of interveners. They're viewed as maybe a paraprofessional or a classroom aide, not even, even a teacher. Sometimes there's confusion about that, even thoughts that they might be a nurse. But that is not what an intervener is. None of those things, especially a classroom aide or a paraprofessional. Unfortunately, again, that's one of the battles that we work on, to try to have you recognized at a level above the paraprofessional. So the educational system doesn't currently across the country recognize the value of interveners. Sometimes a paraprofessional is hired and not given any training. I know settings where the interveners are hired and they're called interveners, but they don't have much training. So we have a lot of issues in the field that many people are working to improve, but there are still problems with pay, with turnover, with retention, with interveners not being valued, and that continues to be an issue that we're working on. So to advance the field, we have worked to elevate what you do as related service providers rather than paraprofessionals. And to do that, the higher education training is really important, that higher education pathway. If you look at the law, related service providers have all gone through college. There's been some kind of university pathway that they've been a part of. So we know that the profession itself will not necessarily thrive, nor improve, nor become more recognized and supported at the paraprofessional level. It just won't happen. So that's why we're working so hard to have it be recognized at a level above the paraprofessional level. That's part of why we're doing the credential and the increase and all the work that we're doing. Let's talk about how then this credential is renewed. All of you who are on this call have at least received your credential. And over the years, there have been a few shifts in the name for various reasons. But let's talk about renewal now. So after 5 years, and again, this was part of what we worked on to obtain, we looked at other professions like interpreter professions. It seems like 5 years. Even teaching professions say you renew after 5 years, and it needs to be renewed at that time. However, any time during that 5 years, you can begin the process of renewing your credential. You don't wait till the last year and then all of a sudden start on it. You can do it at any time. Then, once you've renewed it, we are now using the term intervener specialist for the deafblind. And part of that is to designate you at a higher level than the paraprofessional level. The renewal, the credential that has come out of NRC Para still says intervener. And one of the issues that we ran into was having you be credentialed through the National Resource Center for Paraprofessionals. Many people have asked over the years, if you want interveners to be elevated, why do you credential them through a paraprofessional organization? So we've had to deal with that and address that. And in about 2020, we moved away from the NRC Para, and we began to do the credentialing through an organization that was a national organization that was not connected with the paraprofessional level. And that's NIAA, that's the organization. And along with that has been the distinction of the ISDB. So one of the things also we've done is worked with ACVREP, which is the Academy for the Certification of Vision, Rehabilitation, and Education Professionals. That's a big word. But they allow you, an organization that is approved through them, to give what's called CEs. So when we talk about CEs in a minute, you'll see that those CEs are approved through this organization. And they work with O&Ms, they work with low vision people, they work with a lot of people who are renewing their degrees or their certifications or whatever in other fields. So you can go onto their website and see, but when I talk about the CEs, that's who we're talking about, just so you'll know. So you can do any of your renewal through workshops, conferences, seminars, or university and college classes. It can be during that 5-year period in order to be credentialed. You can earn either 8 continuing education units or 80 continuing education points. So those are the CEs. That's what I just referred to, the continuing education points. Or you can do a combination of both. You can mix them however you'd like to. So let's just kind of think through what that is. So one continuing education unit is 10 hours of professional development training. So if you were to take a class or if you were to go to a workshop and it was a 10-hour workshop, you would come out with one CEU, one continuing education unit. However, if you're in a workshop or a conference and they just give CEs for that, then you go with, they call it seat hours or the time you're there. So it's 1 hour for every one CE. So that's easy. You know, if you sit through a 2-hour training, you get 2 CE points for that through ACVREP. I hope this is making sense, but if it isn't, I can clarify it. So in order to get your credential, you need 80 CEs or 8 CEUs, and you can see they're the same because if you take 10 hours times 8, you've still got 80 hours of training. If you do a university class, 1 semester hours is 1.5 CEUs, and then 1 credit hour is 1 CEU. So by taking a university class, you can see that you really gain a lot of CEUs or CE points with a class. So for example, my coursework has been worth 4 semester credit hours. And if you do 4 times 1.5, you can get 6 CEUs out of that course, where you need only 8 for that 5-year period. So you can see that that really jumps you up close to having the amount of time you need. So again, these were figured kind of based on looking at the interpreter practice on other practices. It's not meant to be burdensome to you. It's not meant to be too confusing. It's meant to encourage you to continue to learn and to continue to advance your professional development and your education. And to, you know, again, that's part of being a professional, part of being part of a practice that goes along with other practices like interpreters or teaching practices. So the only restriction, or at least requirement, is that of the total 8 CEUs or 80 CUs, at least 5 of those, or 50 CEs, must be in a deafblind specific professional development training. So 3 CEUs or 30 CEs can be from other topic areas. So some of you I know have classes in your district or trainings, like on behavior or on safety or on maybe autistic data collection, any kind of that is outside of the deafblind field, but you can use 30 CEs or 3 CEs from those types of training to get your renew your credential. So it's meant to create kind of a balance for you, but not to be unrealistic about what you need to do. So credit is only given once in a 5-year period. So if you took a class, say 6 years ago, and now you're trying to renew, that wouldn't count. So you need to count just the trainings that you do within that 5-year period. The other question is, what if you've had your credential now for 6 or 7 years? And that's not necessarily your fault, because some of this has been our work to try to organize the field and to get things in a logical order that would be credible and acceptable. If you have say you've been 7 years, you don't need to worry about that. You can use any of your training during that past time and turn it in. And that's not a problem, because you got your credential, and now if, maybe 8 or 10 years later, I've had some come forward and say, I didn't work with a child for a while, now I'm assigned to a child, I need to come back and renew my credential. And that's very doable. You can see how this will allow for that. So to do what types of training, you can participate in state or national workshops, conferences, training. The documentation required is the certificate of participation and a brief summary of what you've learned. Again, this isn't meant to be burdensome, but you do have to have a certificate of participation showing that you were there. You might get some kind of a certificate with a signature or something like that, but you need to have that. Plus, you need to just talk about what you learned, so it looks like you were there. You can complete coursework from a college or university, and your documentation for that is a transcript or a certificate of satisfactory completion. So if you go that route, you'll use your grade or your certificate showing you completed it. And you can take coursework in sign language or tactile sign language. And we've included that because many of you going through have not had that instruction. And what we offer is not really adequate in terms of you being proficient in sign language. So if you take, for example, a training that's online, you should get a letter or a certificate that you can print off of completion, and you can use that. So again, that's the document that's required. Also, you can participation in state or national workshops, as I said before, not related to deafblindness. And the documentation that's required is a certificate of participation plus a brief summary of what was learned. So you can see it's all pretty much the same. It's just documenting what you did. And so you'll have that on record. We keep a record of that also, so that it shows again that this is a serious profession. What you guys are, you are working toward becoming recognized as more professionals, not paraprofessionals, and that you are interested in professional development and that you're improving your skills. Here's the professional development response form. It's pretty simple. And you can download it from our website. You can, if you need it, we can send it to you. If you want to email us, we'll send it to you. But you can see it's pretty easy to fill out. It won't take hours and hours. And you include your document, like your transcript or your certificate from your training with that. There is a processing fee of $30. We looked at that. Again, this isn't meant to be difficult for you. As you know, we've tried to keep the credentialing costs down. And so this fee will take care of mailing costs and of the time that it takes to have someone review, to have the person who are reviewing your portfolios and your documentation, and that's what that fee covers. Okay, so it's submitted to NIAA for approval. Once approved, the credential will be renewed and the intervener will then be designated as an intervener specialist for the deaf-blind, and you'll get a certificate that reads that. So it's submitted, not to me, but it's submitted to the NIAA organization. And at this time, we've had 2 different people doing that reviewing. But again, part of that is to keep it very separate from the training portion at the university, but to look at a different level of accountability and review for people that are doing that.
For more information, please visit https:// intervener.org /.